Hello, writers, and welcome to the Researchers Writing Podcast. This podcast is for all your researchers in the sciences who want to write papers in a structured and time efficient way so you can get published in top tier journals at a calm and steady pace. In this podcast, we talk about how we can write papers that are clear, concise, and compelling, and how to make the process of writing less hard. My name is Dr. Anna Clemens, and I am an academic writing coach with a PhD in chemistry. In the Researchers Writing Academy, my online program, I've helped hundreds of researchers get their papers published in their target journals using a streamlined writing process. If you want to succeed in your academic career, mentor your students effectively, and have your research make an impact in the world, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello, writers. Welcome back to the Researchers Writing Podcast. Today, I want to show you how to plan your writing, well, and really all of your day, all of your research with pen and paper, and how to really have, well, any notes that you take during your workday, everything all in one place. I know that digital project management systems are super popular right now. Of course, I'm guessing you will have a digital calendar, but I'm also talking like Trello, Clickup, Asana, Notion, etc., etc. Yet, I know a lot of you still like using pen and paper, just like me, whether that is a notebook or maybe Post-its. That, you have kind of all over your office, on your screen, on your desk, wherever. That system, of course, isn't ideal. So if you want to get away from having Post-its all over, having just random notes kind of everywhere, no real system for that, then I think today's episode is perfect for you. For you, maybe the kind of barrier to using digital systems is too high, or you don't like them for whatever reasons. You're just like a pen and paper person, or you have maybe tried a digital system and it didn't really work for you. You just kept forgetting about it or abandoning it. That's of course totally fine. And I think trying out my pen and paper planning method may really be your thing. The method I'm sharing today is heavily inspired by the bullet journal method by Ryder Carroll. There's a book of the same name. I recommend that book. And also, you probably have heard of this method, right? I was aware of this method for years before I even really knew what it was. At least I had real misconception about what this method is. So if you're like hearing this and you think like, oh no, this is not for me, then hear me out, because maybe you also have that misconception that maybe the bullet journal method is a lot about like making pretty kind of calligraphy things, or kind of doodles, or like designing your notebook using stickers, using highlighters, all the things. And this is really not what the bullet journal method is. I mean, this can be part of it, but the actual method is something else. And this is what we're talking about today here, and kind of my variation of that method and how I make it work for research and writing. So, of course, if you like using stickers, gel pens, colors, highlighters, all the things, then you will love this, and you can absolutely do this, but you really also don't have to. You can just use one color pen, and that's it. Speaking of pens, I do recommend having one really good pen. I recommend a pen, I prefer a black pen, that is fast drying, kind of fairly thin, like in the writing, and also refillable. I can't recommend a pen right now because they discontinued the pen I was using. So I'm still searching for a new one. I can update you once I found a good one. But yeah, have a look if you find something like that. So, the idea of my pen and paper planning method is that you have everything in one place. So it's project management system, kind of daily, weekly, monthly tasks, a journal, and a place for your notes. It's all in one place. So what you need for that? Well, what you need is a notebook, with numbered pages, ideally, and the pages should ideally either be blank or dotted. I'm showing you the pages of the notebook that I recommend. They have these small dots. And the pages are already pre-numbered, which I really, really highly recommend. I'm using the Leuchtturm notebooks for this. This is also, they come in different colors. I'm going to get a new color for the next year. I like going through different colors. Gives me pleasure. But they're really, really nice. I like this kind of A5 size, I think it is. And I can put a link in the show notes to which one I'm using. These are also the notebooks that Ryder Carroll in the bullet journal method highly recommends. And I really found that recommendation to be very good. So that's what I'm using and what I recommend. All right. What I want to do in this episode is that I want to walk you through how to organize that notebook. And we'll be going kind of front of the notebook to the back. I will be showing on YouTube kind of examples of the pages I'm talking about. So if you're currently listening and you can't see the examples, you can always go to YouTube and just look up those examples. What I like doing in cases like this is that I still listen to if I'm listening to the podcast, to the audio, I'm still listening to the episode and just see if the method makes sense for me. And if you decide at the end, oh yeah, this sounds good, I want to try this, you can always go back and find the YouTube video and see how everything is done in detail. All right, let's get through how to organize your notebook. Well, first of all, the first thing you want to do in the very beginning of your notebook, you want to write your name, phone number, and address. Like this may feel a little uncomfortable. I felt a little uncomfortable because there's a lot of private things in there or will be in this notebook, and maybe some things will be confidential, things like that. But really, imagine you lose it. Like you don't have anything uploaded to a cloud. Everything is in there. So you really rely on someone to get this back to you. And maybe you write a nice message saying, please, please, please send this back to me if you find it. Especially if you're someone who's prone to losing things, leaving them on the bus or on the train, or I don't know, in a meeting room. This can be just like so helpful. All right. Then the start of the notebook. The first thing you want to do is reserve space for your table of contents. So you want to write over the first few pages, or at the top of the first few pages, you write table of contents like I did here. You don't need to fill this in yet. I did this later. First of all, I would reserve 4 double pages. So a double page is like 2 pages. Like if you open the notebook, the left and the right page, that's when I say double page, I mean that. 4 of those reserved for the table of contents, and just write table of contents at the top of the page. Then the next page in your notebook, what I would do, I would reserve 1 page as like a legend where you explain what the different symbols you'll be using, what they mean. So let me go through the different symbols. I think this is like the really beautiful thing about this method is that we're defining symbols. So we don't need to repeat. So we kind of have shorthands for things we mean. I'm using the symbols I'm talking about now are the symbols that also are the same ones as in the bullet journal method. And then I invented some additional ones that I'm going to share with you later. But those kind of basic ones are a dot. So just like a small dot means task or to do. As you complete that task, what you do is you do like an X. The dot's in the middle and you just like write an X over that dot. I don't know if you can see this here. There's the first one is the task and the second one is the completed one. Then if you didn't get to a task, if you're moving that task to the next day, what you do is you write kind of a bigger than symbol over that dot where kind of the point of that bigger than symbol is that dot. Again, I'm showing this on the YouTube video. This is the third one. Ooh, here. The bigger than symbol. All right, for any events, you do a circle. So you just write like a small open circle. As you complete that event, you do a check mark through that circle. If an event or a task gets cancelled, you just strike through that whole that whole dot, circle, and also the description of the task and event. And oh, actually, I'm also going to mention notes. Like notes, if you want to take notes, this is a dash. So you use a dash for any notes. Cool. And then I mentioned more symbols to use later on. All right, we're going further in the notebook now. What's the next page? Well, I would reserve 2 double pages for your yearly vision and goals. So if it's the beginning of the year for you, then I would do that. If you're at the beginning, or if you're anywhere else in the year, I would do maybe quarterly vision, quarterly goals, wherever you are right now, whatever, however far you've progressed through your year. But I would reserve some space at the beginning to reflect on that and have a bit of a broader view of what your goals, your priorities are for this current season, or maybe you do term, semester that you're in. In the Researchers Writing Academy, we have workshops for this every quarter that I facilitate with prompts to work through this. So if you're interested in that, please join us and you'll get access to that. But otherwise, just, do what feels good to you to kind of reflect on the quarter, term, or whatever year that has passed and to plan out the next period. Next in your notebook is a publication pipeline. This is really nice to have somewhere toward the front. And the publication pipeline gives you an overview, the status of the papers that you're working on. So where in the pipeline are they? And you can then easily determine any clogs in the pipeline or any places where there's just a lot of papers at once, and maybe places that are empty where maybe, you need to refill the pipeline here. So it gives you a really nice overview that you can then derive your whole publication and research strategy from. So what I recommend doing here is that you divide your publication pipeline. You can do a double page or just one page, depending on how much you're working on, how much you're involved in, how many papers. And you want to divide this in 6 to 7 sections, depending on what makes sense to you. The sections I'm recommending are collecting data and analyzing data, in draft, submitted, revising, or in revision after peer review, published for the current year. So, for example, you would say published in 2025. And lastly, dormant papers. So papers that are kind of in the drawer, you have started them once, or you want to start them. There's some research data you have collected and that would be ready to write up, but it's kind of not the time for those papers and you just don't want to lose sight of them. You want to capture them somewhere, but you also don't want them to clog up your pipeline right now, or to populate your pipeline when you're not actually actively working on those. So any of those backlog papers, drawer papers, go in the dormant paper section. Cool. I'll show you the example that I made here. You fill in your papers for each section with the task symbol. So you do a dot. And then write down paper or the working title of that paper. And as let's say you put a paper here under collecting, analyzing data, and then you finish that step, what you can do is you can cross that out. So you would cross that out here and then write it down in the next step in draft. And this way you kind of move through until hopefully most papers by the end of the year end up in this published section. Cool. The next section in your notebook that I recommend you do is a yearly overview. For the yearly overview, I really like just having an overview of the big events, the big projects that are coming up in the year to come or in the current year that you're in. So I would use one double page and divide that up into 6 rectangles each, 1 rectangle per month. And then you would write down any already scheduled events, projects, etc., that are coming up in that year. So, for example, a graduation of one of your students, maybe a vacation you have planned, a conference you're going to, a writing retreat you're attending, starting date of a course you're taking. I mean, any event, any big thing, any project, or maybe this is the start of a collaboration, anything you already know, you put down there and you fill this throughout your year. Because it's sometimes hard to get this like big picture view from your calendar where there's like loads of like small meetings and things like that. And the bigger things are not so easily visible. So this is really the space for the bigger things where that you can refer to. All right. So then you want to reserve some double pages. And I would say at least one double page per project for project plans for each paper. So you want to make a project plan for each of the papers you're working on. And what you want to do is similar to that publication pipeline that we just went through, where you divide your page into the different stages of the paper writing process. And then for each stage, you write down all the different tasks and subtasks that are part of that stage, part of that step of the paper writing process. And as you move through the process for that paper, you check off all the steps that you've been doing. This is so useful to have. And I will say, if you're doing this by hand, with pen and paper, this is kind of a lot of writing work. As I recommend you have like one template project, and then for each paper you're working on, you would like copy that project by hand. So it's a lot of writing. Some people really like it. So if you really like having this like on paper, like it's worth it. Like this is not wasted time at all. Like we're wasting so much time in other ways, and this really isn't. This feels a bit like wasting time, but it really isn't. Like if you know pen and paper works for you, this is 1,000 times better than all the post-its. Put this in here. But if you now feel like, okay, no, maybe this isn't really my thing, I think I need a digital system for this, then fair enough. This is actually personally what I do too. I don't use my notebook, my pen and paper method for project plans. I have those digitally in Trello. And if you are a member of the Researchers Writing Academy, you can just copy all the tasks from the submitted in 8 weeks Trello board for this into your notebook, right? Or maybe if you prefer the digital tool, then you just use the Trello board for this. So this is totally up to you. All right, next up is our monthly overview. We need one double page for our monthly overview. So reserve a double page and write down whatever month you're in right now. I made this for January, so I wrote down January at the top of both of those pages in the double page. On the left-hand side, on the left page of that double page, you want to write down in a column all the days of that month. So starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, down for January to 31. And then next to those numbers, you write the weekday or the first letter of the weekday. So I wrote for January 2025, I wrote 1 W for Wednesday, 2 T for Thursday, etc. Then on the right-hand side, you write down the month at the top, and then you divide that page into the different buckets that you are focusing on during that month. So what are the big things you're working on? What are your goals? So you need to do a bit of a monthly plan for this, which I highly recommend doing. And for example, what I wrote down in this example is research project 1, research project 2, teaching, supervision, admin, committee work. So this could be the things on yours. Adapt this for whatever makes sense to you. And then you want to write down the bigger tasks and events for each of those buckets that are coming up in this month that you're planning to do. And then you check those off as you go through your month. You can do this during your weekly reviews. If you do weekly reviews, you can go back to the month and check those off and kind of get a new overview over what is left to do during the month. And that then informs what you plan to do during your week. That's how I do it. Okay, then For the left-hand side, where we wrote down this nice column of days. Oh, sorry. This is mirrored, so it's very hard for me. Here we go. Um, Here you write down anything good or maybe even neutral that happened. So you write down during your weekly review, or maybe every day if you like, the good things that happened, or like just things that happened during that time. So, for example, oh, on this day my paper got published, or here I had like, what did I write? Project meeting with Edinburgh, or something like that. This really, this is so nice to remember all these things, because I feel like we're racing through life so much, and just like taking this like 1 second to like write down the thing that happened on that day is so nice, and actually feels like you're savoring life and everything you do doing your work so much more. And also you're able to remember things then, or not remember. I mean, you're able to remember them better, but also you're able to look them up. Like just having like a whole year worth of those monthly pages, you really can easily see all the different fun things and just things you've been up to. All right. Yeah, so you only want to do this for the month you're currently in. Like, don't do January, February, March, April, or after each other. You just do this for the month you're currently in, and now we move to the week you're currently in. So for the week you're currently in, you do a weekly plan. And this is optional. I mean, everything I'm saying here is optional. Like, I'm just giving you suggestions for pages to use in your notebook and suggestions for how to organize it. Different things work for different people, and you're always, I mean, you're very much invited to adapt this to make this work for you. Like, that's the most important thing, that it works for you. The weekly plan, the bullet journal method doesn't have. So this is something that I invented for myself, and that works really well for myself. So I wanted to share it with you. Why it works better for me to have a weekly rather than kind of a daily planners, because I kind of can fit in my tasks and events for the day very neatly on this one page of the weekly plan. If you have a lot though, a lot in one day, it may be better to do a daily plan, or you can also do both, where you have a bit more of an overview in the weekly plan, and then you go really granular during your day, depending on how much different things you're engaging in, depending on how much different things you need to capture. Okay, for the weekly plan, at the top of the page, write the number of the week. This is like something I highly recommend getting used to. I know like in North America, this isn't super common. In Europe, it's a little bit more common. I actually picked this up when I did my PhD in Sweden to talk about weeks in terms of numbers, not like the week starting at the 23rd of August or something like that, but rather to say, oh, week 14, week 15. Makes so much sense. Most calendars have that option to enable the week, so you know which week you're in, and then you get used to it. So you write them. I recommend writing the week number at the top, and then divide that page again into 6 rectangles, Monday to Friday, and then have 1 rectangle for just general tasks. You write down the events and tasks for each day. And you can do this one day at a time. At the end of the day, if you like, you can plan the next day, or you do this. I do this on Sundays or on Monday mornings to plan out my week. And then I will go during the week and check off things, or add things, etc., or move things to the next day. Things like that. And you can also I like to keep this one tasks rectangle or square for all the things that I haven't assigned to any given day yet, or I'm just having like a bit of a list of things. It depends what works better for you. Does it work better for you to already pre-assign everything to a day? I kind of sometimes like to just see what my energy is like during a given day, and then just like pick and choose a task that matches my energy. So this is up to you, but this is how I do it. And I have this weekly plan in addition to my digital calendar. So in my digital calendar, I have meetings scheduled, but I don't really put so much like things that I'm working on that day in there. So that's why I use the pen and paper method to kind of get the whole day down. But I know some people use their digital calendar in a way that everything is captured there. Like they put writing sessions in there. They put when they work on what in their calendars, like super like structured that way. So if that's the case for you, you may not need this. But since you're listening to this, I guess you are interested in learning how to do this with pen and paper. Basically, my message is do experiment. And see what like the best combination is for you. Before now, I talk you through the pages you'll use as you go through every day. A very quick break. If you don't want to procrastinate anymore when you need to write a research article, if you want to get rid of the feeling of overwhelm because your backlog of data that isn't published is just like growing and growing, then I have the perfect solution for you, our free training for researchers who want to publish in a calm and steady way. It's an hour-long training and it's interactive, and I will walk you through my entire system to get published in top-tier journals using a streamlined writing process. Just go to researcherswritingpodcast.com/free and start watching, well, for free. So that's researcherswritingpodcast.com/free. Let's get back to the episode. All right, we're back. So every day, what do you do with your notebook as you go through your day? Well, you, at the beginning of each day that you work or that you want to use this notebook, you write the date and the weekday. I put a little rectangle around that, so I kind of write it like this, but it depends how you would like to do that. And then what I highly recommend doing is use the space, like the first space of each day, for a bit of journaling. And this can just be a 5-minute or 3-minute thing. This can be super quick. What I like to do is first I journal freely. I just get out of my head what's in my head, like any stuck thoughts, I don't know, anything I'm currently thinking about. I'm not thinking about this very much. I'm just like seeing where it takes me. And I'm sometimes journaling one sentence and sometimes I'm journaling 3 pages full. So it really depends on the day. Like there's no rules. Some days I don't journal at all. Like don't put pressure on yourself. Just try it out. And then you can just journal freely if that's your thing. Or you don't. What I like doing as well is to use prompts for journaling after the free journaling. So the prompts I'm using, I have 3 prompts. And for each of those prompts, I'm not writing down the prompt anymore, but what I learned, like what I got inspired to with the bullet journal method, was to invent a symbol for these prompts. This makes it so fast and so much better to journal, I think. It's a really, really great tip, I think. So my prompts are, my first one is what am I looking forward to today? I love that prompt. And my symbol for that is a little heart. So I draw a little heart. Then my second prompt is, what is going to be difficult today? And what can I do to make it feel better? I also love that prompt. Like this is genius for me. Like this works so, so well to get any like underlying like emotion that I have about the day out there. And usually I can come up with a solution that somehow, as I was just thinking about it, couldn't come up with. Like, I don't know, there's something magical about getting things done on paper. Works so, so well. I do this every morning. And yeah, let me show you this also if you're watching the YouTube video. Oh, yeah, the symbol for the what is going to be difficult today and what can I do to make it feel better prompt for me is a lightning. So I just draw a little lightning. I just try to find symbols that are easy for me to draw since I'm not very good at this. But you can, of course, do whatever you like. I have a third one too that I didn't write down here, but that is affirmations. Some days I really like writing down affirmations. Some days I don't. And I guess the important thing about affirmations is that something that you really should feel is true in your body. Don't write something down that you don't believe in. It's like no point. But if there is something that you just want to remind yourself of, maybe like an intention for the day, like how do you want to approach today? Just like some like motivating words to yourself as you start your day. Write that down. I use an A for affirmations. It's not very innovative, but that's what I came up with. So you can copy that if you like. And of course, if you have your own journal prompts, then use those depending on your journaling practice and invent symbols for those. Or if you like different colored pens, but then you have to carry around different colored pens. Like if you are like traveling a lot or using your journal in the office and different places and at home and etc. Like make it easy, make it so that you actually end up using it. So don't overcomplicate things. Oh, and really nice prompt as well is what am I grateful for today? I like this a little bit better for before going to bed, kind of journaling in the evenings. So that's honestly why I'm not using this prompt very much because I tend to journal in the mornings. But yeah, that's a nice prompt as well. All right, what to do after the journaling bit? Well, as I mentioned earlier for the weekly plan, if the weekly overview if you don't want to do that or you need a more granular overview of what tasks are coming up during your day, you can use the space for like kind of your to-do list of the day. Remember, the dots are for tasks and you cross out a task by making like the X over that dot and you cancel a task by striking through and you move a task to the next day by doing this like bigger than symbol. All right, next thing. As you go through your day, you may have ideas about your research project, or you may have meetings about research projects. And this is really great because you can capture all of those in one place in your notebook. The way I would do this is by writing down the title of the research project that these notes pertain to. You can use a symbol as well. So you can easily find that. So for example, you could have a star for one of your research projects and I don't know, a tree for another one, whatever makes sense. Maybe you can even find something that kind of relates to what you're working on, what you're researching. I don't know. You can have fun with this. And then the idea is that you write your notes with a dash. I mentioned this earlier. So you kind of write your notes down with a dash like that. And you can organize your notes even, you can structure them a little bit. So you could have like one dash as like a bullet point, and then you can have like sub bullet points. I didn't show this here, but you could work with like different indents and things like that to organize things a little bit. And what I like to use, and I'm not sure if Ryder Carroll recommended this, or if I came up with this myself, but I like to use an exclamation mark before the dash to remind myself that this is a very important note. So any important notes I mark with like an exclamation mark. And then any ideas, I like to use an asterisk for an idea. So I draw a little asterisk. That way, when you look at a page, it's super easy to just see, oh, this is a note, this is an idea, this is a task. Like your brain really captures these super, super fast. So you just fill in your notebook like this, day by day, week by week, month per month. So how will you find anything? So you find anything and everything with your table of contents. So what you will need to do is to do a little bit of indexing. So I do this at the end of every week. I go back through the day and I add to my table of contents. So I divide my table of contents into the different months. You could put the project plans that you had at the beginning, the publication pipeline, the yearly vision and goals, all these things you can get down here and write which page you can find them on. But then also I like to write down the month and all the pages that are covering that month. Then for the research projects, I like to write down the research projects, all the pages that are covering this research project. And then you can subdivide this if you want into literature notes you've taken, meeting notes you've taken, thoughts and ideas you've had, and specify the pages where you can find those. It's like super easy then to find any notes that you've taken for any of the research projects you've been working on. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing about literature notes, which is as you read papers, as you read books, and you want to take notes, like this, your notebook, your pen and paper method notebook, super good place to jot down those notes. But I would keep a different system for keeping your literature notes on top. So once you're processing your literature notes, you want to put them in a different system because these notebooks, at the latest after 1 year, you'll archive them or you put them somewhere. You're not carry this around. You're not carrying 6 notebooks around with you every day. So you can't reference easily any literature notes you've taken, and you may need them like in years to come, and you want to kind of have all your literature notes in one system. And I should totally record a different episodes about this because this is a super common question, how to keep literature notes in a good way. And I have an idea and I have a good system I can recommend for that. But that was what I wanted to say about literature notes. Cool. You can, at the end of the year, also use this for like yearly reflection, at the end of the month for monthly reflections, as you want to do them, or quarterly reflections. Again, you can journal freely, or you can use certain prompts. As I mentioned, I think earlier, we do this in a very structured way in the Researchers Writing Academy. Highly, highly recommend planning in the structured way. We do yearly planning workshops, quarterly planning workshops, and also monthly planning prompts. So we're kind of covered. And then we have like weekly accountability threads. So we do have a lot of like kind of this accountability built in if you're interested in that. All right. Before we round off this episode, I've been talking for a long time. I just want to give you a couple of very important tips before you get started with your pen and paper method. So number one, don't be a perfectionist. Like I mentioned this before, it doesn't have to look pretty. You don't have to have super nice handwriting. It pays off to write in a way that at least you can read it. But more important than it looking pretty is really that you use your notebook consistently, that it becomes your like catch-all for everything you encounter during the day. Like in the days, weeks, months to come, this will pay off so, so much having all in one place. So, as with everything new, you're trying to establish any new routine, new habit, start small and then build up from there. Like maybe all the sections I've just introduced you to are too much for you to start with. And maybe you want to start with just a couple sections and then see just that you keep up with it, that you do the indexing every week, that you use it every day to journal, that you use it you bring this to a meeting every time you're kind of leaving your office and things like that. Yeah, second thing, I highly recommend every new year you start, use a new notebook. Like even if half of the notebook is still empty, use a fresh notebook. It's just really nice for like a new year to come in with a fresh notebook and fresh energy, and makes it a little easier to archive things as well. So highly recommend treating yourself to a new notebook every year. Also, and I mentioned this before as well, but just want to say this again. Maybe you'll use this pen and paper method, your notebook, in connection with a digital tool, and that's totally fine. Like you can use, or I'm using, for example, Trello and a digital calendar plus a notebook, and that works really well for me. Just experiment a little bit and see what works. Okay, finally, I recommend reading the bullet journal method. And maybe based on what I've just been telling you, and also if you're interested in reading the bullet journal method, it's a pretty short book. The method is like described in the first half of the book. And yeah, super nice read, I think. So if you're into that, highly recommend it. Yeah, that is it. I hope this was useful and understandable. If you listened and you would like to see the examples, me holding up the notebook into the camera or trying to then go to our YouTube channel and just search for the Researchers Writing podcast and you'll find that. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was good. This was useful. I hope I inspired you to just use a pen and paper method to go back to a nice journal and a nice pen and spending time journaling, planning, all things. And yeah, see you next week. Bye. if you would like to submit a question for me to answer on the podcast, please head to researcherswritingpodcast.com/question. That's researcherswritingpodcast in one word.com/question. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, it would really mean the world to me if you could review it in your favorite platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever app you're using. The more reviews a show has, the more likely it will be shown to others who are looking for podcasts in the academic writing space. So thank you.